Welcome to the Being Known podcast with my friend, Dr. Desire.
Oh my God.
It's been a minute.
Oh man. It's just like I'm just crossing the street. All I'm doing is crossing the street, and there was no truck there. Literally 2 seconds ago.
You got to work on those transitions of your state of mind, Curt. That's all.
Oh my gracious! I certainly need to be wiser because I don't think I looked both ways when I stepped into the street. I thought I had coming from my friend Pepper Sweetie.
We are here to discover and explore what it means to be truly known. And if you're looking to be wiser, you've come to the right spot this week, because this season we are talking all about wisdom and how we discover this together and all the aspects of it. Today we are talking about the wisdom of many advisors, the interpersonal domain of integration. And as we are recording this, it is St. Patrick's Day, and so I'm glad that we're going to be talking about weenus today, because that sounds very Irish. It sounds like they're magically delicious.
Oh my gosh. I had so many people, I mean, not so many people, I've had a number of people over the years say, like, weenus, what's that?
Yeah, let's talk about that one.
What is that word?
We are going to be talking about weenus today, so stick around. You don't want to miss it.
Oh, my gracious. Man, well, I think, over the course of this season, we've talked about how, in some respects, what it means for us to become professional human beings is to become people of wisdom. And we've also talked a bit about how, as people who've, as I say, like we're living with the downstream side effects of modernity and all that means. And one of those side effects is without even knowing that we are kind of pushed in this direction, that we are trained to think that, like, I'm really kind of on the planet by myself and I got to figure things out. And so even if it's wisdom that I want, I'm somehow responsible for accumulating that. Somehow I have to go out and make it happen. And I think in today's episode, what we really want to focus on is that wisdom is something that I participate in. It's not just something that I personally acquire, like my own personal. Now you got me, thinking about leprechauns, and and their pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and the leprechauns, they want to accumulate their own personal like pot of gold. And wisdom is not just something that I'm trying to accumulate or to acquire for myself, but it's more like a dance that I want to enter into. It's a party that I want to be joining, and there will be something that I will be able to experience. I will know what it means to be a person of wisdom because of the connection that I'm making with other people. And so, I mean, I over the years, we've talked about all these different elements of interpersonal neurobiology and integration and these different domains of the mind. And today's domain that we're focusing on is this interpersonal domain, this sense that my mind, I certainly have agency, and there are many things about my own mind that do just belong to me, those that belong to you. But there's also a great deal of how my mind functions that actually, often without my being aware of it, really depends upon my connection to other people, that other people are as much a part of my mind, far more a part of my mind and my mind's activity that I'm often aware of. And we take as a kind of a lead text today from the biblical narrative, the 15th chapter of Proverbs in the 22nd verse, that reads, "Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. And even the ancients were aware that in order for us to live in the world the way the world was meant to be lived in, I can't just figure this out by myself. I need advisors. And of course, we could also say I can have so many advisors in the room that I don't know what to think, especially if they're all coming from many, many different places. The point is not that I need 100 people in the room. I need to get everybody's opinion, and then I can pick from somebody else's opinion before I make a decision. Nor is it me just trying to get other people to tell me what to do. But it is a matter, again, of my being aware that there will be people who I trust. There will be, a half dozen people, or maybe somewhere in that 6 to 8 people in my life, on any given basis, that I will want to seek wisdom from. And it's not just about information. Well, wisdom, like how do I fix that? How do I fix my washing machine? That's one kind of wisdom. But also, if I need to make a decision about, where am I going to work, or what do I do in my marriage, or how do I take care, how do I respond to this employee? All kinds of ways in which what it means for us to make decisions about our human relationships.
Yeah, I love that you point out that it's not about having 100 people in the room and surveying everybody to find out what your opinions are and that kind of thing. And it makes you, to me, it makes me think, we need to be wise about who we have as advisors as well, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
I
was on a Zoom call with 62 people recently.
Holy cow.
You think that's excessive. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's no decisions that are going to be made in that meeting. There's no, and so you have to get down. I think you have to get down to a core of people. You're gathering information from a lot, but then you have to get down to a core of people that you really trust to make the bigger decisions. Does that ring true for you?
Oh, totally. Well, and I mean, again, true to our our friendship and with Amy as well. I mean, there have been any number of moments in the course of the time that we've known each other in which if I'm sharing things with the two of you, things that feel vulnerable to share, there is a particular wisdom that comes not just because I've offloaded things, but because of the awareness that I'm no longer alone with what's banging around in my head.
Yeah.
And even the way I then perceive and think about the things that are banging around in my head shifts.
Yeah.
Because often, if I'm looking for help about something, it's often like I'm anxious about the thing I'm looking for help for. And my anxiety is, yes, at first glance, it might feel like, oh, I'm anxious because I want to make sure that I do this the right way. But it's ultimately that if I don't do it the right way, there's going to be some catastrophic end. I'm going to be left alone, which is what our anxiety is really ultimately about. And so to have you on the other side of this conversation means that wisdom is something that I acquire, again, not just because it's information. Now, it's not unimportant. But before that, what I'm really acquiring is presence. And it is the presence that lets me exhale, enables me to be less anxious, more attuned, more attentive, and also willing to imagine things that I could do or not do that heretofore I wouldn't even imagine or consider doing because I was too anxious. I wouldn't have the courage to take those steps. And so it reminds me of this is a group that I was running 20 years ago, and a person came in this one day, and they talked about this, this problem that they had at their workplace, and other people in the room wanted to go around and say, well, have you tried this? And have you done this? And have you thought about this? And she said, yes, I've done that. And no, that's not going to work. And here's the reason, and so forth and so on. And then at some point, probably 7 or 8 minutes into this list of people giving her advice, somebody said, I just want to say, the place you find yourself just feels really, really hard. Spend a minute or two just dialing in and being empathic. And named those things, and so kind of stayed with her. And even as they started to speak, other people were chiming in and saying, yeah, absolutely. Really. And after about 2 minutes of this, she says, I think I know what I'm going to do. Just like that. And it turned out that it was like some combination of some things that 2 or 3 of the people had suggested already, that she had given all the reason, like, no, I can't do that, can't do that. But it was this moment that I'll never forget, where you watch how connection with people in the room enabled her to make it, like somehow the information was suddenly made available to her that she needed to know, that had been available there 10 minutes earlier, but not if I'm alone. And that whole notion of that we-ness that we're talking about, that we are, this is the thing that comes right off the first page of the Bible. This notion, let us make mankind in our image, right? So we're being made in the image of a communal God. And then 1 page later, it's not good for the man to be alone. Again, this notion of God reinforced in the first 2 pages. There are important elements that tell us about who, like I have to pay attention to me in the context of other relationships. And then we get, to this notion of the 3rd and the 4th page of the Bible and how families these are the first places where the framework of social structures, all social structures, their frameworks are ultimately based off the family. And so I think I'm just going to go and do my thing, whether it's at work or at church or at this or that. And I'm taking my family everywhere I go, with all my attachment patterns and so forth, and often I don't even know to do this. And it's also important because it's in the context of family where we experience our first, often where we, not everybody, but where we often experience our first violence. And the violence doesn't have to be, the violence doesn't have to be like Cain and Abel, although that's right. Again, right. You don't get very far into the story of the Bible, so somebody's killing somebody.
Right.
And they're siblings, no less. Right. And so we see that even, and it doesn't, you don't have to be murdering people, but we all know, our listeners, we know about what it means to be in a family where, somebody's ignored, somebody's the black sheep, somebody's the scapegoat, somebody is the one who's allowed to be chaotic and whatever because nobody else has the courage to kind of contain that. I mean, all the different ways in which the reality of our we-ness is kind of tainted, right? It gets tangled up with our fear and our shame because of our trauma that happens. And so our response to this, of course, is I'm just going to exit in some way, shape, or form. And then I'll just go find wisdom on my own, which is not very helpful.
Right.
I mean, in some respects, this is like whatever's happening between the snake and the woman in the 3rd chapter of Genesis. And Adam keeps his mouth shut. You figure at some point, Eve's sense of things, not even consciously, it's like, I guess I'm alone in this conversation. And I'm going to have to do something with this. And what's the something? The tree is looking really, really inviting, given what I got to put up with. I've got an accuser on one hand, and I've got silence on the other. Well, who was that group? Who was it? Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yeah. And so it's all this is we've talked about these things before, about attachment, about the being seen, soothed, safe, secure, and about how our emotion needs to be co-regulated with others. We sense, and then we make sense of what we sense. All these things that are developed in the context of a community. I don't go off and read in an encyclopedia, which we don't have anymore, but on the internet. I don't do this by myself. I don't acquire wisdom primarily by acquiring information, because it's not about the acquisition of information. Rather, it's about the formation of confidence and comfort in the presence, a range of a lot of different emotional states. Can I be a person who, when my 7-year-old or my 17-year-old has me in a place where I want to kill them? And if you are a parent, you have wanted to kill each of your children at least once. And there's no shame in this, ladies and gentlemen. We just need to acknowledge it, confess it, and receive God's mercy and move on. And children are like, really? You really have these feelings? I'm like, oh. Wait till you're a parent. That's when you'll know.
Yeah.
That's when you'll know. And so this sense of we are made to be integrated. We're made for this connection with other people so that of different parts of me can come together. This way of being integrated and then becoming someone who, when I'm with the 7 or 17-year-old and it's upsetting, I can pause, exhale. I think I told this story once. My daughter Rachel, who's now a solo pastor of this is a woman who now cares for a congregation of believers on her own.
I'm sorry, Rachel. I'm sorry he's going to tell this story. You have my
I told
sympathy.
This story, right? We're going to have we're going to have this work day at church, on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. Have I told it on the podcast?
I don't know. You've told me the story. I don't know if life and the podcast all just run together to me anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know what stories I've told and haven't told.
Yeah. Yeah, she's 14 and our son's 11, and we have this work day on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. And so we're all going to have to get up and go to this work day at our church. And so I'm thinking, okay, teenagers, Saturday, 8 a.m., this is throwing a match into a tank of gasoline. And I might have been born at night, but not last night. And so I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that we get this. So I start the Sunday before. I'm saying, hey, this is what's going to happen on Saturday. Just letting you all know. And practically every night, we're just reminding people, right? And Friday night, it's about 10 o'clock. I'm ready to go to bed because we got to get up to leave by 7:30. And I'll never forget. I see her. She's sitting on one of the counters in the kitchen. And I just kind of and we've already talked about it at dinner that night, right? 4 hours earlier. And I say to her, what time would you like me to get you up tomorrow morning? And then it's the, and there is a sound that was accompanied with an eye roll, okay?
Oh.
And we've now documented that the eye roll is the most potent nonverbal cue that communicates contempt. And I'm standing, and I'm I see this, and I'm my arm is reaching for the meat cleaver that is in the block behind me. Dude. Wisdom. I'll tell you, wisdom, I'm going to show you wisdom. I'm gonna bring wisdom to bear. And I can tell, I'm right here in my chest. And I had to actively breathe and pause. And then say, because I'm it's 10 o'clock, I want to go to bed. And here's the thing, my daughter is she processes things. She's a deeply reflective, thoughtful, smart, wise, now, adult. And I had to pause and be curious. It's one of the few moments in my parenting life maybe where I did this and say, can you tell me what's going on? And I didn't really want to because I wanted to go to bed. And I knew that if I said, do you want to tell me what's going on? We would end up doing what we did, which is a 30-minute conversation sitting in the family room about what a god-awful week it had been for her. That, yeah, I mean, no teenager wants to get up at 7 in the morning on Saturday. I get it. But, like, that's not really what was going on in the kitchen. And wisdom, like it was something that was happening in the room. Like the Spirit of God is happening in the room. And, but I'm not able to do that with her if I also don't have my cohort of people in my own life by whom I'm being known either, where I can roll my eyes, where I can, whatever, discharge and behave however, in order for them to ask me the question, can you tell me what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. To bear the fruit of the Spirit, to live like the Sermon on the Mount, I have to be in an integrated state that can only happen interpersonally. We like to say, you can be right all by yourself. I can be right about things.
Oh, yeah. So this reminds me of, it's probably when I was first married. I remember I was having a argument with my wife, or a fight with my wife. We weren't actively having the fight. We had the fight and we weren't speaking at this point. So the fight was over, but we weren't talking. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I'm like, it's just so blatantly obvious that I'm right. I mean, it's just so, there's just no question that I'm right here. And I don't know, she won't acknowledge that, and he said, you know what you get to be when you get to be right all the time? And I said, what? He said, you get to be alone. And I was like, oh. But
wow.
I will say that, as a child, being right was really important to my dad. I mean, I witnessed that. I mean, being right was his spiritual gift. I mean, it was very important to him that he was right. And so I found, early in my marriage, what was I modeled all those, and but what was I modeled all those years was, I'm right here, doggone it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
let's all admit that I'm right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that conversation with that guy was just eye-opening to me.
Wow. Yeah.
Anyway.
It's interesting too, because this just happened literally last week, and I note to self, this has happened more than once. I also understand the power of what happens in my kitchen when I say to my wife, honey, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Oh, yeah. You're speaking to the choir here. Yeah.
Dude,
there's a pause, which is embarrassing, really. Like, I've never heard those words before from you.
Hey, excuse me. Could you say that again, please?
Yeah. I want to
wait.
use that as my ringtone.
I want to put my. I'm going to turn my phone on. I want to record this. Can I record this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this whole sense that like you can be right by yourself, but you can only be loved in community.
Yeah.
And if you're right all the time, you get to be alone. I thought like, oh yeah, you can be right and then you'll be left, like literally, like you'll be like people are like no.
We should make T-shirts. I think we could sell T-shirts.
Get right or get left. No,
yeah, get right or no.
I don't know how you want. Like you're the creative director. I think you.
Oh yeah, I gotta think about it because now you got me thinking
we
about.
could do that. That's an idea.
Yeah,
that's an idea.
Yeah. Start making T-shirts with Curt sayings on them. I think this is Amy. Get on this. But they're going to have to all be extra larges because he's got a lot of words. They should have a dissertation on the back explaining what the words on the front mean.
They don't have to be in microfiche. Oh,
We'll charge per word. We'll make a fortune.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. All right. So here's the other thing. Like, we'll make a fortune. We'll use it. We'll put be words on the sleeves.
On the
Be words on the sleeves. On the
sure.
inside of the garment.
Exactly.
It'll be reversible.
Reversible.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, I mean, all this just remind us too that like, yeah, as our friends at the Bible Project like to say that everything you need to know about human beings, you can read in the first 4 chapters of Genesis, right? First 4 pages of the Bible. And this major event that there's this thing that God says, I've given you everything you received from me. I've given you everything that you can eat, except one thing. And so that one thing is the thing from which they take. I'm prone to taking, and I want to take so that I can have this information, this knowledge, and that I think is wisdom. In order for me to, because if I know everything, if I know as much as I possibly can, it helps protect me from being hoodwinked by someone else, and then I get burned.
Yeah.
It's not just that I'm wrong, it's I'm wrong and will be ashamed. I'm wrong and I will be not enough, and you'll want to leave, and you will. And so there is this sense then too of remembering that I'm in the world to receive, but not that I don't give anything. And this reminds us of just the general rhythm of how this relational aspect, this interpersonal domain of the becoming people of wisdom, it's not just, I'm only taking from others. There is this movement from, like beginning with labor, right? The baby comes out, comes back, and comes out, and comes back. There's this sense of we connect with people, and then we move to solitude. And it's important, not isolation, not independence per se, but we move to a place of solitude. And by solitude, we mean that we, by our own choice, are moving into a space where we are communing with God on our own in a particular way. It's a different kind of communal connection. In order to come back then into connection with others, and then moving back into solitude, and then moving back with others, and so forth and so on, that this, this rhythmicity that we have. And so this sense of like coming and going is a rhythm that we all carry. And it's this integration of my sense of agency and my own personal sense of who I am, in relationship with the we that I'm also part of. And as it turns out, my sense of who I am is ultimately shaped equally by who I am with, who is with me, and who I am with it also. It's not just all me. Like, I become who I am, not just because you are with me and I receive from you, but I become who I am because I also give to you. And I notice your response to the part of me that I give that also shapes who I am. So this is a two-way street in which this community experience enables us to have a greater clarity of who I am on my own, the things that are just mine to do something about. When we have trauma, this whole enterprise of this integrating feature of connection and community that leads to solitude, that leads to my being able to do things that are particular to me, that then brings me back into community and this rhythm, trauma tends to lead instead to these rather binary ways of seeing the world.
What do you mean by that?
So, like, I think it's easy for me to think that it's like you're either for me or against me. I'm either on my own, and I have to be on my own, or I'm going to be swallowed up, right? To be in community is to kind of like dissolve. I lose my sense of self.
Lose yourself, yeah.
I mean, in my own marriage, I mean, Phyllis, she here to say, yeah, so I grew up in this family where, without knowing it, I didn't, of course, didn't have words for it at the time, but there was this felt sense in which I had two parents who loved me deeply and dearly in the best ways that they could, all of which is really beautiful and good. And at the same time, with a mom whose anxiety, again, I didn't know this at the time, but whose anxiety like had me feeling like it was really difficult for me to have a sense of me apart from her. You know, her anxiety would lead her to have me doing things that she would want me to do that I wouldn't want to do. But I couldn't not do it because I was too afraid of getting into trouble. That job fell to my second oldest brother, who was the one who was willing to kind of like just be who he wanted to be kind of thing. But this sense of like, I'm just going to be absorbed. And so, you know, getting married, there's this sense in which like, it's either like, if I do what you want me to do, Phyllis, like I'm going to disappear. Like I'm not going to have any sense of me. And so I like, dig in my heels early in our marriage about like, no, this is what because I'm trying to respond and react to like living in a house where that's what was going on.
Yeah, but I think that you're speaking a very common thing that happens in marriages in the beginning or in relationships in the beginning. I'm relating to what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot of the acquisition of becoming people of wisdom is really about learning to be present with others and recognizing that they and we can have different states of mind, and some of those, we can be in different places and we can be okay. But it takes time for us to learn how to do that. It also requires, in the presence of others, of me naming my longings and my griefs, me naming like, oh, this is what I want in this community. Growing up to name those things. I grew up in a family where it wasn't that I was never asked what I wanted, but there were crucial elements of who I was becoming where those questions were never asked. They wouldn't have occurred to my parents to ask me those questions. And it's only later, even like in my 50s, now I guess technically in my 60s, where like I'm just aware of like how much anger I've carried around in response to not being asked about those kinds of things. And so we name our longings, we have to name our griefs in order to be present to this process. And then in the course of that, in these communities, then being able to move toward creating beauty and goodness, even in the face of what feels difficult. And so in these confessional communities that we run, and in our friendships, right, we want to name, what do we most long for? What are the parts about our relationship that grieve us? And by grief, I use that word as a word. It's a kind of a container for the entire range of anything that we feel and sense and image that is unpleasant. Sadness, embarrassment, anger, the whole works. And not just the range in terms of the different kinds of emotional states, but also the levels of intensity of this, right? I can get my feelings a little bit hurt or a lot hurt, depending upon what the topic is, but naming those to repair the ruptures. I was with a friend earlier this morning who's about to go into a meeting with a client of his, in which this friend who works as a consultant, there were some things that they knew that my friend wished that he and his company had done differently. And he said, like, no, this morning I'm going to have a conversation with one of my clients, and I have a rupture that I need to repair.
Yeah. Yeah. I had this week, I don't mean to step on your story, but this week I had a situation with someone I work with that something happened, and there was a rupture that they weren't even aware of.
Huh.
Right? They weren't aware that this rupture had happened. But I picked up the phone and came to them in a way that was, I came into the conversation with the intention of repairing. That was the whole intention. Now, I think if I would have gone to the conversation right away, I probably would have caused more of a rupture, but I let a little bit of time pass because I had some feelings that were boiled up because of what had happened, and I needed to calm those before I went into the situation. And I talked to my wife about it, and she's like, yeah, you know, just affirmed that you need to have this conversation. And this is somebody I don't know really well, but I just came to it and I just said, you know, I want you to know that I'm having this conversation with you because I feel like a rupture happened and I just really want to repair it before I start feeling any resentments, before, you know, I go down a road and start telling myself a story that isn't true. And I just really want to have this conversation. When I started telling her what I had perceived happened, she at first got defensive and wanted to explain why and what. And I just said, it's okay. That's not why I'm here. You know, this is, you need to know what this situation left me feeling. And I don't want to feel this about you. I want to, you know, get beyond it. And we ended up having a lovely conversation. And, I feel like it's moments like those that can build bridges into relationship that otherwise could just, you know, I could have chosen to just harbor bad feelings and not let it repair and let it always be this thing that's there. And I don't want to do that kind of stuff anymore. I don't want to do that at all anymore.
Dude, like what you're describing is it's like the essence. It's the essence of the gospel. I mean, in Jesus, God comes and says, I want to repair this. Like, and I've been getting closer and closer and closer and closer to this. I tried it with Adam and Eve. Right? I came and talked to them. They wouldn't have a conversation with me. Kind of tried it with Noah, and then he kind of went off the grid, and we tried it again with Abraham. He throws his wife under the bus. I mean, like all these things. Like I just keep trying, and now like this is how serious I am. I'm like, even if it costs me my life, I'm coming to repair. And the person that you're talking about, I mean, like Pepper. This is so rare that anybody says, no, what do I want? I want a good relationship with this person, and there's been a rupture, and I'm going to repair it because of what I want, what I really want. I want a good relationship on the other side of this. And it's in that kind of a context that wisdom, it's like we get IV infusions of wisdom because her experience will now have been like, oh my gosh, like she may only know that when a rupture happens, like defensiveness is the only tool you have in your box. But not now. Now she has a new experience that is relationally grounded, in which it would not be hard for her to say, like, no, I'm wiser because I now know how the world. I have a closer sense of how the world really works. Because you take the step of being vulnerable.
And I just want to carry it a step further in that if there was wisdom in that, as you've recognized, then that wisdom has come from, you know, you and I spending time together, you and I and Amy spending time together, us talking about these kind of things, about the importance of repairing rupture. And so it's not an independent place, thing that you come to this place independently. It's been years of relationship that have put me in a place where I can be brave enough to have those kind of conversations.
Yeah. I mean, in many respects, this interpersonal domain of the mind really reminds us that, rupture and trauma and our brokenness happen in the context of relationships. And wisdom is only going to be received to the degree that healing is taking place ahead of time. Healing is a prerequisite for wisdom to be received. Even to be in a posture to receive it. Healing must precede it. And that requires the kind of things that we're talking about here on an interpersonal domain. I don't just go out and do it on my own. And so this whole notion of how we are looking to be in the world with others for wisdom and beauty and goodness to emerge. I just want to talk about the artistic offering, and then you can talk maybe with us a little bit about application.
Sure.
The famous jazz pianist artist Duke Ellington. Dude, he's well known for this song "Take the A Train," and you can find it in any number of different, YouTube videos, different versions of
iTunes, it's everywhere, yeah.
Yeah. But the number of different instrumentalists that are involved in this and how each instrumentalist is looking to the other. And they give space for the brass, they give space for the keyboards, they give space for the percussion, they give space for the vocals. But they're watching, sensing, image, like this beautiful thing that's happening that depends upon the presence of other people.
Yeah.
That reminds us of what it means for us to be both individuals, right? Only Duke could play the piano. They're like, you don't got just one keyboard, but like that playing by itself isn't the same thing. It's not the same thing. And so we offer that to you to, like, this week, find a version of "Take the A Train." Listen to it. Just listen to it several times, over and over again, and just get a sense. And then imagine, like, who are the people in your life that represent that? So maybe we'll just go on to the application. Take it away.
Yeah, so the application for this week is we want you to make a list of up to 8 people with whom you most closely interact in relationship, to whom you believe you are becoming more integrated, right? So those close 8 people, write out the explicit ways in which you interact by which you believe you are becoming more a person of the fruit of the Spirit. Then we want you to consider writing each of these people, this is the hard part, a handwritten note of gratitude, letting them know exactly how his or her life and yours interact in ways that you are becoming more integrated, more perfect, just as your Father in heaven is also perfect. And it's easy for me to write down. I mean, I don't know if it's easy, but to think of 8 people and write those down, but then to make the commitment of writing a handwritten note to each of them and being vulnerable in this way, I think is a great exercise and has more benefits than you may know starting out. So, and I wanted to say one other thing, and when you talked about the rhythm of solitude and community, so this week I went on your website and went to the resources section because I was leading a group of people. We were going to be doing a long 3-hour meeting, and I wanted everybody to be awake, alert, and attuned as we started this meeting. And so I wanted to borrow some of your resources, and I just want to plug the amount of, like, it's so cool the way you have it set up, and it's so easy to do. It makes it's this practice of being present. And just in your sort of solitude time, I just want to make a little recommendation that you maybe go check out the resources that Curt has available on his website. And we will put that in the show notes here as well. So, Curt, thank you for today. This was really fun and
right
insightful.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying growing more wise with you every day.
Dude.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than, I'm glad you're not reporting that you're becoming more foolish by being with me, which is...
Well, there is that. You know what?
It is a side effect. It is a side effect of when people hang out with me. It's a side effect.
There's a little bit of foolishness that goes along with it for sure.
Tomfoolery.
So, all right, if you are watching us on YouTube, Amy, I believe, is going to be joining us here in just a couple of seconds. So stay tuned for that. Curt, thank you. I love you.
Dude, right on.
Until
Love
next time.
you. Yep.
I am joining you.
Good.
It's the
Hi,
Amster.
guys.
Hey.
Hey.
I wasn't sure. You were on the
I
fence.
know.
So
It was
just
a
wanted
little
to make
hit or
sure.
miss this morning.
Yeah.
Feeling a little under the weather.
You
Under
look
the
great.
weather.
Under the weather.
Thank you. Under the that was a very timely catch in my throat.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So as I'm listening, I came up with 3 R's. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's perfect.
Wow.
And then one little side thing that's not an R.
Okay.
But so, okay, we're doing this work, right? Like, we know each other, the 3 of us. And, like Pep, when you were talking about repairing the rupture, that you were able to do that because of our relationship and the work that we're doing. And by work that we're doing, I mean like the contemplative work, not work. And so there was one thing that happened this week. The first R is risk, because and this is gonna sound superficial, I think, but it means something more. So I was getting ready I don't even know what I was getting ready for, and I did my hair differently. Or I had the idea of doing my hair differently. And for a split second, I thought, no. Because that could go really, really badly. But just as quick, I was like, are you serious? How bad could it go? And will it be okay? I'm like, yes. So I did my hair differently, and it was fine. That in and of itself, I don't really care about my hair, but I do at some extent. But it was like, okay, that is just...
I dare you to shave it off.
Oh.
Since you don't care.
I like dares, but that's a big dare. But it was like, okay, I'm going to try to make this. Maybe one of you two can make it tie in. But it was like, okay, that was just a very quick, fleeting thought, right? Me doing my hair, should I do it? Da, da, da. But I thought, okay, that is just a very minor example of risks that I can take because of our relationship, because from being known. And then that goes back to the creating beauty, because we can create beauty if we're known and loved.
Yeah.
And you created beauty with a new hairdo.
I'm doing my hair differently. And then when we were talking this morning, Curt, when you were talking about, like you were reflecting, that if you do like what somebody else wants you to do, that you feel like you will disappear. Mm-hmm. And you can do that reflection because you're known and loved.
Yeah, right. That's right. Even being aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to Pep's R, which is the repair, is that we do that work. Mm-hmm. So all those examples were just like, oh my gosh, this is the beauty of being known.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just become increasingly, I'm just more and more aware of how much of life kind of in some respects AIM kind of really does come out of those 3 R's that you're just describing. We have to take risks in order for us to live well. It's important for us to, reflect? Was that the... Reflect. Mm-hmm. I want to reflect on things that have happened that are both good, but also things that I want to change. And then going forward, that whole notion of repairing things. I mean, so much of what eventually becomes Russia and Ukraine is a function of somebody not repairing something in their kitchen with another person in their kitchen. Mm-hmm. You know, it's me actually reaching for the cleaving knife. You know, when I'm angry with Rachel. It's Pepper choosing not to go back and repair that rupture. You're just going to hold on to it, and a week, 6 months, a year later, it's gonna, it'll be open warfare.
Yeah.
And, that gets back to that whole thing that we talked with patients about. We say life is actually very, very simple and extraordinarily difficult, but it's not difficult because it's complicated. It's difficult because we are afraid and we are ashamed. And it's a lot of the same work over and over and over and over and over again. And sometimes that work can feel so overwhelming that I can't bear to look at it, can't bear to imagine doing the work as much as I have to do, because I think I'm having to do it by myself.
Right.
And so I don't. And instead, I have to make up a lattice work of complex stories at the end of the day, of which I say, well, it's so complicated, which kind of like lets me off the hook of then having to actually do the very simple work of naming my longings and my griefs.
Yeah. It's good.
Rest, reflection, and repair. I'll remember them as the pirate acronym.
Risk. Not rest.
Reflection.
I mean, rest is good too.
Risk.
But
Wait, the pirate?
They're the pirate thing?
Arr.
Oh.
So silly.
Oh, man. Okay.
There's that foolishness that comes in.
No. But I'm also a new T-shirt. Like, look, we don't have to have words. We don't have words. Like, this entire episode can just be some I don't know, like some Johnny Depp thing of,
Yes.
like Jack, who was Jack
Yes.
Sparrow? Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yep.
Okay, I had a really good T-shirt idea. Okay, because speaking of Curt's dissertation, because when I was a kid, I loved.
That was pretty funny, you have to admit.
Remember the T-shirt where it would say "I'm with stupid" and then it would have an arrow. Okay, I loved the I don't know what that says. I loved it, and then you line up who you want to stand by so that it's pointing to them. And I thought, okay, the T-shirt, it can be like a 4 T-shirts. And then it's in your community. Like this brings people together. So it starts with there's part 1, and then the other shirt is part 2. Okay.
Now it sounds like Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, thing 1 and thing 2.
Yeah. Part 1 and part 2. I'd be like, I was stupid.
I feel stupid because I don't get it.
I was stupider.
Oh, no, it's not going to... It's not going to sound stupid. Like you were saying, okay, Pep, you were saying that these T-shirts are going to have to be extra large because there's going to be so much writing.
Yes.
So all of the writing,
now
I'm going to have
right.
on the first bit, and
That's
then
funny.
you'll have on part 2.
Yes.
So you have to be together.
Yeah,
So when
in
you
order
think
to-
of your 8 people, you can gather them and give them all part of the T-shirt. Okay.
And then you have one like in the
I'll
middle
keep-
that just says pause in parentheses because it's going to take a long pause.
Oh my gosh. I'm fully waiting for one of our listeners to think like, okay, they're gonna like go make it. They're gonna go make 3 T-shirts
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
collectively,
Wouldn't it be
reversible
fun to have
T-shirts
T-shirts?
inside and out. Present us with all the words.
Did you have something else,
Risk,
Sam?
reflection, repair. Nope, that's it. That's all
I
have.
wanted to. Another thing about this, that just came to me about this rhythm of solitude and community, and it made me think of my mom, who I think probably hasn't had much solitude in her life really until COVID hit, and suddenly she was overrun with solitude, right? As a lot of us were, but she was alone.
Yeah.
And in that time, I think maybe because she hadn't had it before, she went on a spiritual journey. She went on out of that time is when she started painting. But she needed that sort of solitude space in order for that to incubate, for those ideas and everything to, otherwise, she would have just kept doing what she was doing. And she's really a different, a different person because of it, because of that
Wow.
time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I'll share with you guys
That makes me want to
a
see more
picture
of her
that
work.
I'll share with you guys her latest. when we take the break.
Cool.
Yep. Okay.
All right, guys.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Okay.
It's great to be with
Yep.
you. Next
You
time.
too. Next
All right.
time.
This podcast is produced by Curt Thompson, Pepper Sweeney, and myself, Amy Chella. Audio production and editing is by Keaton Simons. Video production and editing is done by Mark Gould. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on social media at BeingKnownPod. If you like this podcast, tell a friend. If you love this podcast, tell everyone you know. And please like, rate, and review wherever you listen. Be well, be known.